Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Attorney General Carl Bethel now acknowledging they'll be making amendments to the Sexual Offences Act.
Former Minister of Social Services responds to the current minister's statements on marital rape.
A group of irate taxi drivers suspend their services at the Lynden Pinling International Airport.
Police visit the busiest shopping districts hoping to reassure the public this holiday season.
Is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin, topping news tonight after saying earlier this week that addressing marital rape legislation wasn't on the radar at this time. Attorney General Carl Bethel today saying the government is looking into amending the Sexual Offences Act. April Sands reports.
After making remarks that marital rape was not on their radar, Attorney General Carl Bethel acknowledging now that the government is looking into making amendments to the Sexual Offences Act. The contentious issue of marital rape has once again caused a firestorm in the public, with many weighing in on either side. Well, Bethel told our news team today that he and other government officials will be seeking public consultation on amendments to the Sexual Offences Act with a view to completely criminalizing marital rape.
The comment made came out of the blue. But having been made, it did raise a very important question, and the important question is that within the bonds of marriage, there are certain areas where spouses, male or female, are not protected from certain conduct that in any other relationship would be a crime.
Bethel says while the government is focused on many other things, such as the legislation for the inner city revitalization and financial and economic bills, now that the marital rape issue was brought up by the UN repertoire as a surprise, they'll work on it now.
The kinds of personal attacks launched over the last several days against one of my colleague ministers are uncalled for. The issue must be the principle, not the person.
Many ministers seemingly divided on the issue this week, though, some coming under heavy heat for their remarks, like Minister of Social Services Lanisha Roll, who said she thinks marital rape is a private matter. Bethel says people should focus on the issue itself as opposed to attacking his colleagues.
We are now looking at amending the Sexual Offences Act. Section 15, I believe, of that act is the section that sets out sexual offenses against a spouse where there has been an order of judicial separation or there is a separation agreement entered into between the parties or some other legal proceedings towards ending the marriage.
Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
We'll hear more voices on the marital rape issue in a minute, but first, a tense scene outside Lynden Pinling International Airport today after nearly 100 taxi drivers decided to withdraw their services for much of the day. Their actions came days after an altercation between a taxi driver and a tour operator. Today, those enraged taxi drivers insisted the altercation was the last straw, and they are now calling on the Prime Minister to step in. For more on this, here's Jasmine Brown.
Those irate taxi drivers say they are simply fed up, and they're labeling the situation here at the airport as explosive.
This was a time bomb waiting to explode a long time.
Nicholas Jacks was just one of many taxi drivers who are furious over ongoing issues at LPIA. Taxi drivers are fed up with what they call unfair treatment due to a new system that was implemented last month at LPIA.
Look around us right now. I'm not just passionate, I'm serious about it. We are serious about it, all right? Ground transportation. Taxi drivers are very intelligent and educated people, all right? They may act dumb and stupid at times, simply for the fact is that that's how they want us to react, all right? We are very intelligent. We give good service. We are ambassador for our country, but we don't be treated like one. Next time, my dear, next time, and there will be a next time. You will be there, but you will not know anything about it until that time.
To keep those taxi drivers in line, armed officers from the airport police station were out in full force. Officer in charge of the airport police station, Superintendent Dennis Dames, confirmed there was an altercation earlier this week, which led to an assault.
There was an incident that happened where apparently it's all about a sign. I believe a taxi driver might have come with a sign. and normally he shouldn't have a sign. And so I think the tour operators and the taxi driver, they got in some altercation where there was a physical scuffle. Both persons were taken into custody, and we have an investigation to determine exactly what happened.
And police had to quickly spring into action this afternoon after those taxi drivers spotted one of the men involved in the altercation and chased him and 2 visitors down in the nearby parking lot. After police stopped the trio, the visitors were escorted back to the main terminal. Meantime, taxi drivers are pleading with the Prime Minister to intervene on their behalf.
So what are you guys now asking for?
We're asking for the Prime Minister of this country to step up, be a man, rein in his ministers, ask them to correct the problem. Either he's the Prime Minister of the country and the Minister of all ministers, or he's a joker. You can't say you're the Prime Minister, every minister answers to you. You direct ministers to go and speak with us, and they can't even come back and have a decent meeting and resolve this and live up to the promise.
The Prime Minister, and look here, I'm a big supporter there for them, never wanted anything else. We need this to be right. This is not with politics now, but we need this to be right. And not, it should have been done yesterday. Okay? We're tired.
As for the impact their actions had on operations at LPIA, there was very little backup as NAD workers shuttled visitors into awaiting town cars and tour buses. Our news team also spoke with public relations representative for the Nassau Airport Development Company, Jan Knowles. As for the boycott, Knowles said NAD's primary concern is ensuring visitors get the best possible service. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
A local pastor is calling on government to not move so fast with legislation on marital rape. Dave Burrows, senior pastor at Bahamas Faith Ministries International, said while he firmly believes any form of abuse against a woman is wrong, there are a lot of questions that must be answered before marital rape is fully criminalized.
I think there are legitimate questions that need to be definitively answered. I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to look at other countries that have implemented this type of law. What's been the track record? What's been the research?
As call after call is made for government to proceed with haste to criminalize marital rape, the church seems somewhat divided on the issue, with some religious leaders outright condemning the act and others not too keen on passing legislation on the issue. For Pastor Dave Burrows, many things need to be clarified first.
How do you police when it's consensual and not consensual? And then also, is there the possibility that it could be used by one party or the other? In most cases, we're talking about a woman where if she's angry with her husband, if they have a disagreement, if she wants to extort money from him, does she say, okay, I was raped? How do you prove it? So I think those are some of the challenges when it comes to marital rape. However, I don't believe marital rape is acceptable at all.
The pastor said what you don't want is abuse of the law. He referenced the case of a college football player in the U.S. who lost everything, including his shot at the NFL, after he was accused of raping a woman, only to find out years later she had lied.
She apologized for lying on it. But now the damage had already been done. So the question is there a possibility of something similar like this happening in that same environment? So I think those are some of the issues that we really, really have to look at to see, where, if a law is to be implemented, how is it to be implemented, what are the ramifications, what are the possible abuses, and if we can come to a very clear conclusion, and then I think, we can proceed.
He said when it comes to enforcing a marital rape law, there are some cases that are very clear-cut, but then there are cases where you'll have to determine who's telling the truth. He said another question is if there is a need for such a law.
For example, if a husband assaults his wife, non-sexually, let's say he abuses her, he beats her, and so there are visible marks, she has recourse right now to go to the law and prosecute him. So are we saying that there's no recourse if a rape is proven now? That's the question.
So I think, any type of violence against a woman, any type of forced action is unacceptable, but I think we have to examine it very clearly in terms of the ramifications.
Former Social Services Minister Melanie Griffin says she now finds herself wondering what the train of thought was for current Social Services Minister Lenny Sherrill when she called marital rape a private issue. Giorgio Bain tells us more.
Former Minister of Social Services Melanie Griffin is calling the current minister's statements on marital rape unfortunate, stating that the minister needs to understand the woes of the most vulnerable in society. Lenny Sherrill is the only female in the minister's cabinet. Her comments have sparked outrage among advocates for women's rights and those on social media. According to Griffin, it is disheartening to have the minister who is in charge of violence and family affairs to come out stating that marital rape should be a private issue.
It is extremely unfortunate that the minister with responsibility for women's affairs, who is responsible for providing assistance with gender-based violence, and women's issues across the board, would make such a statement. It's really unfortunate. In her ministry, she has the Department of Gender and Family Affairs.
Griffin said when she was the minister, she involved herself in the problems of each family that was presented to her. Therefore, she knows that marital rape is an issue that some families are plagued with. Unfortunately, she feels the ministry isn't prepared to handle it.
As a Minister of Social Services, the former Minister of Social Services, I could tell you of situations where we had difficulty finding homes to place people in, and the centers or the safe houses are very, very limited. But and we don't have the resources to deal with all of that. But I'm saying we look at things as black and white, particularly if we're not impacted by them.
Griffin also weighed in on the Prime Minister's comments on marital rape. Dr. Hubert Minnis stated that he was focused on Christmas when pressed on the issue. But according to Griffin, those affected by this issue want to hear his views on the matter.
Even the Prime Minister himself said, when asked about the marital rape situation, he focused on Christmas and the needs of people. But trust me, women in situations of marital rape, that's a need that needs to be addressed as well. But with regard to what he says, then if we are focusing on the needs of persons, we must focus on the needs of the most vulnerable amongst us.
Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
It's safe to shop. That's the message from Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson, who toured some of New Providence's major shopping districts earlier this afternoon. Jared Higgs reports.
A slew of senior police officers descended on Bay Street, ensuring that their presence was well known. Led by Police Commissioner Anthony Ferguson, the officers stopped in several establishments as locals and tourists looked on in interest. For his part, Ferguson said the idea is to send a message that the police are everywhere.
We have increased patrols now, some of them, not only the uniform cars, there are some that you would not know. That is why we are catching a lot of criminals, and we will continue to do that. We are intelligence driven, and we will continue to be intelligence driven. We will hike that up.
The next stop on the tour was the mall at Marathon, another busy shopping district.
What you will see is the shop owners are in communication with our crime prevention team, and they continuously give them advice, the best advice that we possibly can give, so they can provide the necessary safety. If you look around in the shopping areas, you'll see private security. That in itself is huge, along with other things that provide the necessary security for its customers.
Now, as we said earlier, the purpose of this exercise was to reassure members of the public and make them feel safe while doing their holiday shopping. Now, we spoke to some of those shoppers to find out whether, in fact, the exercise did make them feel safe. How do you feel with them being there?
Safe. Look at me, comfortable sitting on here. Otherwise, I would have been scared.
Definitely, I think it's a good thing and needs to continue throughout the year too, not only during Christmas time.
Ferguson didn't wish to speak about his 2018 policing plan, saying he will wait for the new year to make the announcement. Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
When our news returns, an outspoken Anglican priest not yet ready to weigh in on the controversial topic of marital rape, and the young Bahamian shoe designer looking to have everyone stepping out in style this season. Stay tuned.